Hey, folks, if you haven't done so already, please click that subscribe button below. That'll help us grow as a show, attract better guests. Together, let's make healthcare better for everyone. Once again, click that subscribe button. We'll see you on the next one.
Get ready to take control of your healthcare. Here's your host, Ray Coburn.
And you're not one of those guys that's like P.T. Barnum.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, what I've known you to be is your authentic self, and it's almost as if you're letting people in, and if they want more, you're there, but you're not there to push yourself, and that's something that's pretty unique these days.
And I was surprised, like now that I've gotten to speak on stages with big names that I grew up with too, I was brokenhearted when I got backstage and they weren't who I thought they were. It did hit me really hard. And I think, there's layers to it. It's not one thing, but one thing I did learn from being a marketer is that value is the key. If you don't give value, I always call it the value path. If the value ends, the relationship ends, right? And that could be in personal relationships or business relationships. You're going to have, things where the value ends, right? And so I always looked at it as like, how am I contributing? How am I adding value? And from a very young age, I found that did produce a result for me. So if I got to every table and I was like, how can I contribute? How can I make it better? Then I always was, even before I became an entrepreneur, like the few jobs that I had at a very young age, because I started business at 19, I always made it better and I got promoted. I got extra things. I mean, even as simple as in high school, I was at a restaurant and the stock room was just a mess. And so I stayed extra and I cleaned that whole thing. And then they gave me favoritism for the rest of the time that I worked at the restaurant. They're like, he cared. Like because it was a mess. We're all going in there and it was just a mess. So I don't know. It was something.
Honey, if you're listening, you'd really like Steve.
I'm probably not doing it as well at my house. They say the plumber's pipe leaks at home, right? But that was where it started.
Yeah.
And then what I learned when I first started speaking, I was not a public speaker like you saw. We won awards in marketing and I got asked to be on stage. And so then I realized I sucked. And so then I hired a coach. And one of the biggest things about this coach, the reason it resonated was because of how real he was. And so he said, well, that's the best way to be, because a lot of people, they try to be perfect on stage. And then they're putting on this performance, and then that's where you feel it. He said, the more real you are and the more mistakes you make. So if I spell something wrong on the flip chart or something, I point it out.
Right.
Because then they relate to you. And I did get to meet Stan Lee, and I was actually just talking to someone yesterday.
Stan Lee?
Yeah.
Spider-Man Stan Lee?
Yeah. And, I just briefly, I was at Comic-Con. I paid extra to go back there, full disclosure. It was like, it was one of those things. I paid to meet him, but I wanted my son, because my son was big in comic books. I got that. But the reason I bring him up, he gave a speech before we got to go take a picture with him. And he said that the reason he was so successful is because how vulnerable his superheroes were. And, because then as a human, you relate. So I was conscious of that. So I'm going to call it out. I know that I've got to be real with you. And then that feeling that you felt is real because it's me. Because I'm actually not putting out a facade.
I forget this senator's name. It's not on the tip of my tongue right now. But you can go out there and find it. It's like a 4-hour Senate committee hearing with RFK Jr. and a whole panel of health and fitness influencers. And someone actually holds up a bag of tricks that was produced for the US, and they hold up a bag of tricks that was produced for Canada. The one that was produced for the US is glowing. It's bright and colorful and looks so appetizing and wonderful. And why? Because it's loaded with shit that's going to kill us, but it's loaded with shit that's going to sell more tricks.
Yeah.
And they don't allow it outside of this country.
No.
So when are we going to wake up and say, look, enough is enough. Our politicians, they got to stop selling us down the river.
Have you heard Dr. Zach Bush's story?
I have not.
He's in this. He might have been in that room, but Dr. Zach Bush, he's he was a chemotherapy doctor. He actually made chemotherapy drugs. And I think, I don't know the whole backstory, but some of his family had died of cancer. So, I mean, he was like on a mission to save everyone from cancer. The further he got, the deeper he got. And I think there's a story of him, like he was literally looking through the microscope and he was realizing the chemical makeup was caused by what we were taking in. So he's the one, he now has come all the way. He's left that chemotherapy medicine work and he's going around teaching people how to get the chemicals out of their food. And if you don't put it in your body, then you won't have the cancer output because cancer is trying to collect all that poison in your body into a mass so that it can kind of disperse it. And that's what, anyway, without getting into all the medical, but there are more people finding this. Like I used to go speak everywhere. No problem. You know my energy.
Of course.
I'm a ball of energy. So I get back and I'm sitting on my porch. So that August 1st, I got home from that trip. And then by August 4th, I'm still not getting recovered. And I'm sitting on my porch getting sun because I knew, and I had a cup of cacao. I already had this in my life because I knew cacao was like, had all minerals. So I'm doing all my health benefit things that I already had learned. And then I fell down outside and I had a meeting with my mentorship group. So the reason I was getting up is I need to go get on Zoom.
Right.
And so I fell down and I thought, I must have just sat wrong and my foot fell asleep. So I'm like shaking my foot and I couldn't get up, Ray. I couldn't get up. And I was living on this ranch style house in the middle of the woods. And so I'm on this brick path that goes down to the pool and I'm lucky that my son walked by. He had walked by and the thing. I'm like, and I saw him and I'm like yelling at my son. He had to help me get up.
So you could speak, you could talk.
I could still talk at that point. So my feet were weird. And so I got up and it felt a little bit better. So I walked to my computer and I guess I had made a big enough scene. My wife is starting to come. So I'm late for the meeting now. So I'm getting on the meeting and my office had windows. So my wife's like peering in and I thought, she heard the commotion. She's just checking on me. But then one of my employees comes on the meeting and I'm like, what are they doing? I told them that I got this meeting and then they pop up and then they pop away. What I didn't know is my face was all jacked up. I didn't know.
Wow.
And I was in the little box on Zoom. I felt something weird. By the end of that meeting, I felt, okay, am I mumbling? And I get out and she thought I was having a stroke or something.
Wow.
So that's why my wife called my employee and had them get on to say, what?
Call for backup.
Yeah, is he okay? And they're like, let me get on Zoom. And they looked, they're like, no, he doesn't look okay.
Right.
And even my clients later, they're like, yeah, we knew something was
up.
Yeah.
So you felt like you lost control of your facial muscles.
Yeah, it like droopy, like Bell's palsy type thing.
Wow.
And so then within 7 days, basically, and that's the key indicator. My wife figured out I had Guillain-Barré before I went to the hospital. The key indicator is it usually starts on your feet, your hands, and your face.
Okay.
And the face is not common in the United States. Actually, they call that the Asian Guillain-Barré. And I'm not trying to be racist or anything. That's actually what I was told at the hospital. Yeah. More people that get Guillain-Barré there, they'll have face issues. So I don't know how that happens and why is it different there than here. I don't know any history
Sounds
of that.
like it's a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, there's a lot. So, but it's even more rare in the United States to have your face get paralyzed.
Huh.
And so I couldn't blink. They had to tape my eyes shut because they thought my cornea would tear. So talk about being inward. Right. So it was a spiritual experience. And when I was at the hospital, like not long, I think I was there 24 hours. That was when I was at the worst. And I actually said, am I dying? In my head, I'm like, am I dying? Because I mean, like, I can't.
That must have scared the shit out of you. I mean, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
I mean, you go from normal to boom.
Yeah. And I was an athletic guy. Never been hospitalized in my life.
Right.
Never had any major. I mean, playing hockey, I hurt my shoulder, stuff like that.
Right.
But nothing like this ever.
Yeah.
And so.
And we were talking earlier, like I definitely see a difference in your expressiveness. Yeah. And I mean, okay, the beard, that's the obvious thing, but I could still see it. It's just not the same as it was in terms of your facial expression. And so it's something that is affecting you to this day.
Correct. And you know what I noticed as I went through this healing, you know how it goes like a star, like inward. So you look, it goes in from your hands and your feet and from the face down into the trunk of the body. And as I healed, it went the opposite way. So I could start to breathe. Once it started to heal, I could breathe better. I could swallow.
So how bad did it get? You actually had difficulty breathing.
Yes.
It affected your lungs, your respiratory system. No kidding.
Yeah, and then the neurologists and all of them were saying, so the key thing, so my wife is did crazy, and she had a team. So the other women, like Anne and Deneen, if you're listening, I love them. My wife assembled a research team. I'm not kidding. And they were like all online, figuring out Guillain-Barré, self-treating me. Because I had scares with those babies. When we lost those babies, we learned that we had to question everything when it came to healthcare.
Right.
And it's not that a doctor is bad or they just make mistakes. And so since we lost life, I lost babies.
Yeah.
That changed our perspective, and that saved my life in this.
Well, so yes, they're human, and yes, they make mistakes. But the other important thing is they follow their training.
Yeah.
And they're not trained to tap into Eastern medicine or the intuitiveness. They are trained predominantly to write and prescribe.
Yes.
All right, that's a wrap. Hit like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.